everybody. As I promised earlier time that I'll coming back with wonderful sessions with Jumel, Gabilan, Estrañero, and he's a wonderful person from Philippines. He's a defense and security analyst and university lecturer in Philippines. He has already completed the executive course in national security at National Defense College of the Philippines and has participated at NADI Track 2 discussion in Singapore, an Asian-led security forum on terrorism. His articles have been appeared in Global Security Review, Geopolitical Monitor, Global Village Space, Philippine Daily Inquirer, Philippine Star, Manila Times, Malayu Business Insights, Asia Maritime Reviews, and many more. So he is a wonderful person in the field of terrorism and defense strategy management. He already published so many articles, so in his own credit. So I really welcome Jumel, if you allow me to call you Jumel, so in a short way. So that would be wonderful. And today's topic is a wonderful topic, an entire scenario and how distress is dilemma going on in this pandemic situation. Particularly, we will keen to know that in Manila, in Philippines, how they are fighting back with this. So we will have a kind of case studies, a kind of a model for our next way out, overcoming the crisis, this pandemic. So let's welcome Jumel. I really welcome on the platform for dialogue. I am platform moderator, Dr. Swati. Welcome you for today's forum discussions. And the floor is open to you all now.
Okay.
Can you able to share your screen?
Is it your entire screen or a window?
A window.
Okay, okay.
If you click on the window, you can able to see your PPT.
Okay.
Sometime it came late, so not to worry. It will come.
It says that I can share my screen. You must grant permissions in order to.
Yeah, please do.
Can I join again?
You can't able to do that?
Yeah, because it says that it's quite disabled here.
Okay. You can join, you can rejoin. Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
There are always technical difficulties. Meanwhile, I just want to share the name of the topic of today's discussions, that is Damsel in distress. Wonderful topic, COVID-19 implication and Philippine strategic stakes towards a new normal. So, yeah, Jumel is with us, but he's facing some difficulties with the, yes, Jumel. Yes, Jumel, can you able to do that? Unmute yourself. We can't able to hear you. Unmute yourself from the screen. Unmute yourself. It's muted from
Okay,
your
okay.
end. Yes, yes, perfect.
I'm actually asking for permission to screen share.
But you can able to do that from your end. Anyone can present, anyone in Google Meet. Or else what you can do, you can just share your PPT. I will present from my side and you can just present from your end. Or you just start, presenting. No issue for PPT. It's not mandatory.
Um, can you see my screen right now or not yet?
No,
Is there a option for giving permission for slide share?
no, no. It's open to all actually. No need for any kind of permission. Just click on present now and
Yes,
click on a
I actually did. I actually click the button present,
window.
and
Yes,
then there's still your entire screen or a window.
a window.
Yes, but it says that can share your screen. You must grant permission in order to screen share.
But a permission is already granted. Um, but anyone can present actually. There is no need for permission. In Google Meet particularly, they don't have this kind of feature. Anyway, Jumel, you can start your presentation.
Okay. So right now, don't you have anything in your screen?
No, we don't have.
No. Um, I've actually worked hard for this presentation tonight, so I hope I can still show it.
Okay, you can do one thing. You just present now and your entire screen.
Okay, okay. Entire screen.
Yes, do that.
But can you see me right now?
No.
I mean, my face, for example.
Yes, your face is
Okay.
visible. Yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'm having a problem with my. Um, I don't know if it's my laptop or not, but I hope I can still communicate with you regarding my presentation tonight. Okay, but um, my eagerness to present to you the things and of course updates, for example, in activities in the Philippines can or may probably help the other actors in the world, most especially the policy makers and the decision makers across the globe. Okay. Here, based on my presentation, it says that it is under the web platform for dialogue, and I'm very thankful with Dr. Swati Chakraborty as a moderator, and of course to the KAICID and the International Fellow Alumni in Vienna for having this event. My my presentation's title is COVID-19 Implication and the Philippine Strategic Stakes towards New Normal. And the outline of my presentation would focus on the following. First is the introduction, wherein it would tackle the COVID-19 in global and regional context. Second would be the background, wherein The Philippines, COVID-19 and the risk factor would be a byproduct of this. The third one would be the implication, wherein the first premise of the title would um, be ensued. Okay, the phrase "damsel in distress" would be part of the implication. This would tackle about the saga of events and probably the effects from national down to the local level. Fourth would be the analysis, the assessment, and of course the forecasting of the COVID-19 here in the Philippines. And third from the last would be the recommendation, probably in this strategy and and the policy. And of course, we have the conclusion and the way ahead. Okay, so across the globe we have 7 continents, and of course, one of the centerfold of uh, of discussion right now in COVID-19 in the global pandemic is the origin of this SARS-CoV or this COVID-19 from China. Allegedly, it was manufactured. Well, this is only an allegation, but of course, it was not even proven by the global health sectors that it was manufactured and re-engineered by China or by these Chinese um, malefactors or these people in this particular um, Wuhan Wuhan Institute of Virology. And at the same time, there's also this context that the virus came all the way from the United States when these American soldiers from US went to the went to China and had an, had a military exercise, and of course they have infected a few people and have transpired with others. Okay. However, there's also this argument that this COVID-19 or this virus came all the way from Europe. Then um, the people who have been traveling from um, the airline, of course, from the airplane, from their states in Europe, they were able to arrive in the United States and, of course, other parts of the world. Now let's go with the so-called introductions. Okay, the COVID-19's global and regional context really affects the global environment change. Second is of course the global health, and primarily what we are seeing right now is the economy decrease, and this is very widely affecting a lot of people nowadays. Um, I apologize if I cannot show you this particular slide, but this one is very important because I've highlighted I've highlighted here the the size of coronavirus lockdowns. Okay, and of course India, United States, Brazil, Russia, Spain, Italy, and other middle powers at the same time. Powerful states in the world are also part of this. Okay, and it shows that in this report, there's currently on some coronavirus lockdown that meaning their movement is being actively restricted and controlled by the respective state. But I'm not saying that these restrictions are, of course, uh, military heavy led. Okay, but some of these states are being controlled by the law enforcers, and of course they are doing their best to or not to inflict violence or harms with their citizens. So no, while there are sorts of different lockdowns currently in place, in this slide I've I was supposed to show you that based on the Instatista, they have counted those in which governments order their citizens to stay at home. and only take a minimum of necessary trips outside, no, while announcing police enforcements and or fines for people failing to meet the requirements. Right now, we are seeing that the biggest lockdown is currently being enforced in your state, in India, wherein, if I'm not mistaken, there's this 1.3 billion people who have been ordered to stay inside your houses there in India 21 for 21 days, starting from the time that the Indian government told you to do so. So this lockdown exceeds the size of those happen in China, and even and at some point in US, even at the height of the epidemic there, which being claimed by the New York Times. Other big lockdowns are happening, of course, in the United States, where the majority of states have said that they would be enforcing a strict stay-at-home orders, and of course in Europe, where there are nationwide lockdowns, France, Spain, United Kingdom, Italy, and elsewhere. Um, all Russian regions have also adopted lockdowns measures. By the way, no, wherein they first imposed in their nation's capital in Moscow, uh, which affected 132 million Russians in totality. Also in the Latin American, wherein we can see that the Peru, El Salvador, Argentina, Venezuela, and even Colombia, plus other states like Bolivia, Panama, Paraguay, have hardly heated by this pandemic. In Asia, in regional context, where in the Philippines is of course part of this, we have been enforced lockdown measures as case counts on the continent which have started to rise again. In South Asia, for example, in comparative politics, the Bangladesh have followed India's lead, and the Philippines are now enforcing a strict lockdown at some point. Like for example, recently we have this increasing number of infected people in Cebu, and of course, as people have been saying that there is a resurgence in the Metro Manila, as said by Dr. Swati earlier, that in the Philippines, of course, the epicenter from the time that we had this enhanced community quarantine, or the ECQ, was in Manila, and then of course the other regions like southern part of southern part of Manila had also followed this ECQ, or the enhanced community quarantine. I also believe that in India there's also this quarantine method or approach. Um, However, I'm also seeing um, in other states like in India. Well, to be fair with India, you are just doing your part, but people are also saying that there are more draconian lockdowns laws being passed as being observed in my fellow counterparts in South Asia, or think tank. Okay, but compare with Jordan, Jordan has a more caught off guard method, as they perpetrate a more hard approach strategy to punish some of their constituents who are not following the government order. In the Philippines, I must say that um, the government was able to control its citizen. However, there are people who are trying to abuse um, some of the measures being implemented by the government since March 16. Now, I want to say to the people right now who are listening that there are at least 6 or 7 tests in the global and regional context that of course affected also the ASEAN, or the Southeast Asian regions, and the Philippines. This global pandemic is affected regionally and nationally in different facets of tests: the test of globalization, the test of nationalism, the test of leadership, and credibility, both in political and diplomatic. course, the test of universal health care implementation and consistency, wherein the social security right now is being questioned in not only in the Philippines but of course in the Southeast Asia and other international and domestic policy. Um, the fifth would be the test of economic resiliency in the Philippines, and of course the test of the present and future directions. So in the Philippines, um, we have 103,000, 103 million, 320,000 population based on the 2016 record. And our gross national income per capita is ranging from 7,822 based on the PPP international and a dollar rate in 2013. Okay. And our health per capita is of course 329 and 4.7 for the total expenditures on health as of 2014. However, because of COVID-19, it affected so much most of its mobility, its economic growth, at least in the second quarter of this year, and other angles of development. Right now, I just want to tell you this that there are 34,073 plus cases in totality. So that's actually our nationwide cases data right now. Unfortunately, we have 1,000 plus added as of yesterday, June 26. So days June 27. So technically, these 1,000 plus cases have started, I guess, 1 or 2 weeks ago, and primarily this has been the issue in the Philippines. The active cases, these the active cases here in the Philippines, I do believe we have 23,000 plus, and the recovered is 9,000 plus. And of course, we have 1,224 deaths here. Maybe later on we can share about the cases that you have also in India, and of course the best practices that you were able to um, employ in your state. Um, so from this onset, I have analyzed that at least 60, based on the data made by the Department of Health here in the Philippines, at least 62.5% or 21,000 plus cases uh, approximately, where the data of onset of illness is unreported. And that is very important because we need to report all the cases in order to have this uh, i- in order to have exact specimen collection. So, and of course, this data of specimen collection was used as proxy. So, important in data collection, of course, the cases, the recoveries, and of course, the deaths. So, I hope and I urge caution with the interpreting data, of course, not only in the Philippines during the highlighted period, which may be uh, incomplete because of the delays in in reporting. Now, um, let's go with implication. I guess this is one of the important part of my discussion. Okay, so damsel in distress. This phrase was used in my title because I believe the Philippines has been experiencing this stress and anxiety, and of course, at some point, disorders. Not only from the perspective of or from the viewpoint of the people, but of course, at some point, the disunity among the political actors in the government. But of course, I have to be fair that the government is doing a lot of things and its best, of course, to unify its efforts, because we have here in the Philippines, by the way, we have the IATF, the Interagency Task Force. So, of course, all states right now have this committee, have these groups and organization probably, whatever you call that. Okay, but in the Philippines, we call this as IATF, Interagency Task Force, wherein um, all the important actors, not only the military, but of course the medical practitioners, the nurses, the doctors, and people who have been concerned and involved uh, in this effort are being being gathered together. Okay, now um, again, let's go back to the global. From the historical perspective, the COVID-19 crisis is of course expected to inflict steep declines in output across Asia. So if we were going to talk research more since the 1963, 1968 until as of as of as of our time right now, we have 2020. We are experiencing, of course, the or one of the lowest real GDP in percent of the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF. Okay, have actually made some calculations on this. Okay, another implication on the global and regional is of course the upcoming election. Okay, in the United States. Okay, in fact, in my presentation, which I'm very sad right now because I was not able to show you this slide shows that there's this a professor from Columbia University who discussed the effects um, of this COVID-19 crisis having the implication to the President Trump's chances for re-election on the November 3 ballot, as well as the electoral prospects for likely Democrat nominee Joseph Biden. So technically, in the Philippines, of course, after 2 years in 2022, these efforts, this record in the history of the Philippines would also affect the voters by 2023 on who are they going to vote. Those people who have integrity or not, or any indicators or any factors that can affect their psyche in voting the people in the government. Uh, Another implication of this, not only in the Philippines, is the so-called the popularity of quadrant, or the pandemic popularity quadrant. Okay, in fact, we have four quadrant which illustrates the types of applications that are actually growing or slowing in popularity in the world, no? And especially in the Philippines, we are seeing this. Based on the numbers of active users and downloads, there is a growth and at the same time slowdown on the other hand. And of course, the explosion and emergence of these social media applications, because most of the people here in the Philippines are quite secluded outside. Their daily living and lifestyle uh, have been focused inside their home. So some at some point they have to survive their their so-called sanity. And now in the Philippines, this is a very important thing. In the Philippines, the implication of this damsel in distress phenomenon, which I call this, affects the national and local government. That's number one, in terms of the unity and cooperation. Second, the discipline among Filipinos have been raised and being questioned not only uh, by those supporters of our president here, President Duterte, and at the same time, the opposition is, and most of them are members of the Liberal Party, or the other party, aside um, from the dominant party here in the Philippines. No? So we have Liberal Party here, and those supporters of Liberal Party are telling that it's not about discipline, uh, it's about leadership, as they say. Okay, and the third implication of this in the Philippines is the so-called social amelioration program, or SAP dilemma, because um, millions of people are quarantined inside home, and of course they can't go outside. So the government has to sustain and of course provide foods to the people. So the implication of not having an accurate data set, okay, that can be the basis of the number of foods, and of course the money that can be distributed to each household member or the family is being questioned, is being or has been questioned, no, since the second week of April. So the records and distribution is being questioned, much to the M&E, or the monitoring and evaluation, which has been problematic until now, this June. The third would be the fourth would be the credibility of decision makers from top to bottom, and even the legislators themselves in the Congress, vis-a-vis the treatment of or treatment or the applicability of laws to ordinary members versus the political actors, or maybe and or political actors, also being questioned by or by most citizens, no, uh, whether you are supporter or not of the administration. The fifth the fifth implication of this damsel in distress here is the so-called, no, this is also an the by the way, this is only an allegation, which until now, of course, have not been proven in any judiciary or any courts. The so-called human rights abuses and and violations. This has to go through a lot of process in the Philippines, because of the courts are quite busy with the with the pending cases that have been filed months ago, prior to the COVID-19 quarantine. So this triggered points from the fake actors, and at the same time the purveyors of this information. The sixth would be the education and opening of classes. I believe India has this problem too, no, right now. That by the way, in the Philippines, you would have the opening of classes by August. That's the first semester in college, and the starting of classes in the senior high school down to the elementary. So until now, there's still no concrete plan, because the Internet of Things or the artificial intelligence um, have not been concretized, no, in the Philippines. Another implication would be the transportation. Until now, there is no public utility vehicles like jeepneys and buses, no, from the region going to the Metro Manila, unless you have the private utility vehicles. Of course, you can travel, no? But most of the people in the province, in the rural areas, they cannot even travel. So like me, for example, I'm working at home. I'm working with the government in the uh, office of the president in the security sector. So it's really hard to go without without the service. No, that's what we call here in the Philippines service, like vans, okay, being manned by, or being controlled by the government, or being sent to each peripheral areas outside Manila. The last implication would be the food and social security. For example, the job or the loss of jobs. Okay, like here in the Philippines, we have the issue of ABS-CBN, one of the leading media network. Okay, not all not all, not all employees of that network have lost their job, but of course, if some of them lost their job, that would be detrimental to them, of course. To be fair with ABS-CBN, they have this a dilemma on how to support support their employees because until now they have this um, pending case or their or the renewal of their franchise is still at stake, okay, or being or as or being questioned by the administration, and until now it's still not um, or it doesn't have any finality in the decision from the Congress. Okay, so with that case alone, no, ABS-CBN and those companies who have their employees lost their job, that would be problematic, of course. So those families who have their parents lost their jobs, their siblings, for example. Now let's go with the analysis and assessment or the forecast. Operationally, since well, in the Philippines, operationally, since they enhanced a community quarantine or the ECQ, um, sorry, lost. These There's what we call the suspension of activities, no, like the mobility and transport, which causes delays, logistic changes in lineups, commercial drawbacks depending on vessels, no, which have lost non-port, which may be expected as strict quarantine measures and have been at some point being implemented. These drawbacs in the mobility, in the supply chains, in this logistics sector, it cost millions of profit loss since March. So we are not just talking about the private sector, but of course, the government, the private, and even the ordinary citizens in the streets. Now, after economics or the yes economic aspect, we have a political angle here. The United States and China over in terms of the origins of COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2. Um, the origins and handling of the viral outbreak, together with an almost complete lack of cooperation between between the two superpowers, have exacerbated negative images of the U.S. and in China in Southeast Asia, as well as in the Philippines. So the COVID-19 is like the South China Sea. Well, uh, that's my own viewpoint, by the way, no, that um, we are not so sure if the United States will help the Philippines if just in case. That's assumption. The, this is, by the way, an assumption, okay, that in case China would have a coercive approach in the South China Sea against the Philippines, we have no assurance that the United States will help us. Same as true with the COVID-19, despite of the fact that they have given aids, okay, donations. Not only them, of course, we have Japan and other organizations across the globe. There is no assurance, of course, that the United States would be able to help us here in the Philippines in a wide-ranging strategy. Okay, so this spread of COVID-19 has created operational challenges for the United States military in the Pacific, and at the same time in the human and disaster arrangement, okay, or disaster uh, operation here. Another one is the acceleration of diversion of manufacturing in terms of the foreign direct investment away from China to Southeast Asia. Okay, we are seeing that Japan has actually transferred some some of some of the manufacturing industries from Japan to, say, for example, in Vietnam and Indonesia. So I would I would I'm actually seeing that probably, some of the investors in the Philippines would veer away from China's um, or would veer away from China mainland, no. So another one is the continuous protest and resistance from the oppositionists and leftists in the Philippines. In the Philippines, we have this Communist Party of the Philippines, or the CPP, and the New People's Army, or the NPA. And this COVID-19 have been exploited in different angles. So we have different issues here. We have SAP, like what I mentioned earlier, and of course the so-called inept ineptness or the miscoordinated policy directions of the national and the local government. No? So this is being used by the leftists in the Philippines to demoralize and to destabilize the government. And of course, there's still a wide gap of elite and grassroots, uh, the wide gap between the elite and the grassroots society in the Philippines. And of course, it was revealed by the pandemic itself. Okay, we have the high income earners, we have the middle income, low income earners, and of course the poor. This COVID-19 actually reveals how rigid it's in the Philippines to sustain socioeconomically its people's needs from everyday living. Now, I want to recommend not limited to the Philippines, but of course outside the Philippines, that we have to counter check information. That's number one. We have to counter check information not only about COVID-19 related concerns, but also governance, policy, and even propaganda from different sectors. Now, because without checking this can implicate something else. Okay? Instead of informing the people the right answer, the right information, it could lead them to um, to a mistaken information that can be used against them, okay, or not sufficing what the information has to operate, no, in terms of its value. Second would be the continuous, and of course, I have to be honest here that we have no, of course, very very effective mass testing here. But I have also to tell you guys that we have this targeted mass testing. It doesn't necessarily mean that when we use the term mass testing, it has to be 103 million of Filipinos. But of course, those affected areas in the Philippines, both in urban and rural areas, have to undergo this contact tracing, isolation, and treatment. These are important things that you have to do also in India: contact tracing, isolation, and treatment. Another recommendation is, of course, there must be a proper guidance from the leadership as well as the implementation of those policies being examined, no, a continuous recalibration and recheck of of um, of the policies, no, vis-a-vis the well orchestrated strategic policy and forecasting. So that means there would be a direction if the leadership and the implementation would go hand in hand. Fourth would be the uh, responsible activism. While there is what we call the freedom of speech, uh, we have to be, of course, responsible on saying things to the public, saying things maybe for and or against the government. Of course, we enjoy freedom, but of course, we have to be responsible on our language, because people right now are expecting a lot, not only from the political actors themselves, but also those social influencers, no. Um, and at the same time, if there's a responsible activism, we also have to secure our borders against this against the communist terrorist groups in our borders, no. In India, I believe there are also terrorist groups. So while you maintain your health security, you also have to maintain your state border security, you know, whether it's coming from Uyghurs in China, for example, in the western part of China, or probably other threat groups um, from from Pakistan or other parts of South Asia and Middle East. The next recommendation would be the counter check updated policy and strategy. If there are not updated policy, we have to get rid out of that, because if that would not be erased or would not be revised or be changed by the government, then the majority of the population, not only in the Philippines, will be affected. So it has to be led by the health and medical experts leading the fight against the pandemic. The security sector has to supplement, of course, as support groups, not as lead aid, not as lead actors. These law enforcers and military or the uniformed personnel or people in the Philippines have been doing at some point an effective strategy. But of course, there are loopholes probably. Yes, no, not not probably, but of course there are loopholes in some of the mechanisms. So, but I'm actually seeing that most of them are doing great, and they're um, doing things based on the orders, of course, of the administration. There must be an after activity report and monthly report of all finances, of course, not only in the Philippines and India, but across the states, on the donations and of course the distributions of the support from the national and the local level. So this is a crisis like no other. I have to tell the people that this crisis is like no other. It requires a comprehensive and coordinated policy response. So the first priority is of course to support and protect the health sector. It's number one, because they are in the front line. So these frontliners have to be protected by the states um, in order to contain the virus and introduce measures that can slow or may slow uh, the contagion. No, if there is not enough space within countries' budgets, so we need to realign the budget. So we need to reprioritize as we can say, okay, we have to reprioritize other spending, whether that's coming from the infrastructure or the defense. Of course, we have to at least reprioritize and uh, recalibrate some of the state spending. Now let's go with the I guess this is going to be the two last two or three slides of my discussion. Um, let's go with the conclusion part. This COVID-19 is not only a case of human security, not only a health security, but of course, um, a wide-ranging security and development issue. And it has impacted not only the economic sectors, but also but of course, the political security actors as well, no, on how they govern and be governed by their own philosophy as political actors themselves. No? So it affects trade, commerce, stock market condition, and livelihood of local populace. Preparing the Philippines and other nations to address this threat is, of course, a formidable challenge until now. But the consequence of being unprepared of various areas of policy and strategy could be devastating if left unchecked, both in external and, of course, internal borderlines of the Philippines. The number of positive cases until now, no, today is June 27, and I still believe, based on my own forecast as well and my continuous reading, that it would still grow until such time that a more concrete policy in terms of contact tracing, isolation, and treatment will be established. To be fair with the government, they are doing their best. Other sectors as well, like the academe, the civil society organizations, um, everything. No, every member of of our society right now are doing their best. But of course, still there's this issue of targeted mass testing, and it has to be conducted Although of course, as I mentioned earlier, in the limited scale, in terms of politics, it's still a major contributory factor in the decision making in the Philippines. I always believe that not only in the Philippines but also in Southeast Asia, South Asia, and other continents, that the political interests of these actors can actually affect the way they think. Their political psyche, their political imaginations would affect the political realities um, that can be felt by the people during this pandemic, and even after this pandemic. So um, the state and of course the people's interest, the state and the people's interest must be balanced. It has to be balanced. So in the near future, what we can expect in the Philippines, I'm also expecting here in the Philippines and of course in other states that there would be an outlook on workforce. There would be also a reorganization of priorities to shift from one factor to another, and it will continually shift. Second would be that the threat actors would continue to exploit the risks in this new environment, or so-called the new normal. I was not supposed to use the phrase new normal, but of course that is Welstandsiyong, or meaning to say the universal language or the operative language that being used by most of the people now nowadays, no. Um, Also, number three, there will be a mitigating cyber attack risk in the new normal. Because while we are in our quarantine period, I believe the cyber terrorists, for example, they have recalibrated, of course, their own internal arrangement on how to conduct this stratified attack in the new normal. Okay, and right now we are actually seeing some of the cases. So next would be the provisions of modern IT infrastructures. So I guess not only in the education sector, but of course in the work from home um, approach in the Philippines, these two angles have to be decided by the government, and the government has to partner with the private agencies to at least um, think of some of the measures that they can make to at least make some provisions of the modern IT infrastructures, because right now well, most of us are in the online mode. So we have to we have to strategize, no, or to mitigate cyber attack in the new normal. And what we can do to continue is to at least stay ahead of the curve. Second to the last, we have to have a sense of a critical thinking nowadays. Whether states or member states and even ourselves as human would delve into the so-called cooperation or competition in COVID-19. For example, in the case of COVID-19 vaccine, until now there's still no finality of vaccine. Okay, whether it's Moderna or other vaccines coming from different states in Germany, United States, Japan, etc., etc. The question would be, which state will win the race? Okay, which state will win the race? Okay, so that's going to be another question on how the people would view these actors outside their states. Okay, which state could actually take the lead on having a vaccine in the near future? So we have to arm security teams by providing pervasive visibility across modern threats again, okay, that could hamper this COVID-19 vaccine. So I still have to uh, I I need to I need to repeat this, no? Okay, that since there is a threat of hacking, since there is a threat of IT concerns, we have to restructure our system for us to enable faster threat detection and response. This would actually cover these health practitioners away from the possible hacking incident that can be a intermediary or a fatal intervention from a third party actors. So of course last
Jumel, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, sorry to interrupt. We are
yes.
almost out of running time,
Oh
so
yes, yes. Last
yeah. So maybe we will have some round of questions
oh yes,
and have your
I I
concluding
actually want
remarks.
my presentation to end with this. We
Yeah.
have to have hope. We have to have a unity after even after the pandemic, and of course we do not have to uh, lose our faith in our humanity and of course God, as says in the Second Chronicles 7:14, no, that if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and heal their land. So I hope this presentation, although I wasn't able to show you my slide,
Oh,
I
it's
can
wonderful. It's
I can
wonderful.
actually share with you about this representation. If
Sure,
Dr.
sure.
Swati can actually share this.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
yeah, yeah. Anyway,
What
I
we
can.
can do, we can do one thing. In our web platform for dialogue, we have some article publication opportunities. So it would be
Okay.
wonderful if you provide a very short of your presentation so we can publish with your own name and designation in our website.
Oh,
And
sure.
whoever is participated today or the future participants, they can easily see that. So they can
Yes, yes, yes.
visualize that what is your
Yes,
abstract of
yes.
this particular session. So thank you so much on behalf of Web Platform for Dialogue. I'm really, really thankful that because we came to know so many unknown facts from Filipino perspective.
Mhm. Sorry. Dr. Swati, are you still there? Uh, we can hear you
Hello,
now. Oh, yes, yes, yes.
can I hear? Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So, yeah, actually, with this, we came to know so many facts and actually so many commonalities with the
Yes,
Indian
yes.
perspective and Southeast Asia actually all together in the same
Exactly.
parameters that how we could do something together because as we all know, we all are under fear of Chinese occupancy. And very recently, we have seen the China-India war would be. It's not war, kind of war-like scenario, and it's really, really disturbing in this particular pandemic because we can't really handle it anymore. With this, already we are having virus and we are struggling with this, and with that, again we have to struggle with the war-like situation that is not being very accepted in terms of the education sector or any kind of economical development. So I really welcome you, and I would like to have some questions from participants. So, Dr. Aniruddha sir, would you like to ask something, Jumel?
Yes, yes. Hi, sir. Hi, sir.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes.
Good
Yeah.
Dr.
Good
evening.
Boymon,
evening.
thank you
Good
so
evening,
much.
Jumel. Actually, I was curious to know when you use the term damsel in
Okay.
distress. Now, did you have the women in mind? Are there serious problem about women?
Um, Not necessarily. Well, if you would be asking in in terms of feminist perspective, I do not have any issue with that. I only
Okay.
just use some sort of euphemism, and of course symbolism that the Philippines as a woman is experiencing some sort of distress because of this COVID-19. COVID-19 is some sort of course, suppressing some of our efforts to be more open with our daily lifestyle, daily living. So that's it, sir. That's it. I do not have any issue with women, by the way.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Bowman. Anyone would like to ask something, or else we can just wrap up this today's particular session. Okay. So if anyone not like to ask something, so I really want to know some interesting points
Yes, yes,
that with the South China Sea and how the defense strategy
yes, yes,
could help, how actually India and other countries altogether, like even Vietnam and other countries. So how we can altogether create a forum to solve this kind of issues and this kind of tension.
So is that a question coming from you, ma'am? Or
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
It's a question from my end that how Philippines and other Southeast Asian countries, though we have ASEAN and other BIMSTEC, so many forums are there already. But my question is how, as a citizen, you know, can do something together,
oh
to
yes, yes.
collaboration something.
I
So this can be mitigated. Yes.
Yes, yes. I would like to thank that a very wonderful question. This is of course my own advocacy, and as a member of as a member of the university, and of course the um, of the government, we still have to voice out our concern in terms of the so-called code of conduct. The the code of conduct. It is actually one of the main concern among Southeast Asian states. These 10 states of ASEAN, until now, for me, based on my perspective, are not well integrated. Uh, there are three pillars of the ASEAN. Of course, we have the political security, we have economic security, and the socio or social security. Of course, about the cultural exchanges. No, but in terms of the defense integration, we are not. So I believe that not only Southeast Asia, but of course reflected with the um, South uh, South Asian populace like you in India, we have to at least have a decorum of our voice, okay, on what China is doing in Southeast Asia, in South China Sea rather, and also in the border of India and China. I believe 2 weeks ago there's still conflict between Chinese and Indian soldiers, and some Indian soldiers have been killed by the Chinese uh, military or paramilitary enforcers, no, or actors. No. So I always believe that we can negotiate, but but at the same time we have to enforce our laws. Okay, so the uh, if we have laws in the Philippines, it has to be heard in the ASEAN level, and it has to be well orchestrated in Indian perspective or in Indian platform or avenue. I guess India has to partner with other states, like for example Nepal, Pakistan, and other states that have a problem with Chinese behavior, okay, in the borderline. So South China Sea, by the way, is not the totality of all our relationship with China. So Philippines, China, India, and China. It's not the totality of our relationship. That is also one facet. We can negotiate with them in terms of economy, okay? But of course, this negotiation and exchange has to be under the law, okay? Because here in the Philippines, we have a problem of so-called pogos, okay? Um, in the news outlet, in the radio, in the newspapers, in the print ads, you can we we have been seeing a lot of commentaries from the people that some of the Chinese people or citizens, whether they are members of the People's Liberation Army or the PLA, are in the Philippines. So my question is, of course, also in India, if you have Chinese or Chinese people who are not registered in your state, of course, you have to report them. So everything has to start with law and at the same time with its application. And if there are states who can support and, of course, have a good underpinning of your of your perspective, it has to be pushed through. That's
Right.
it.
Thank you so much, Jumel. And I think beyond the policies, beyond the governmental things,
Yes, yes,
I personally think if we could create some kind of dialogue sessions to do some
yes.
mitigation or to do some collaborations, in academic things and
Exactly,
cultural
exactly.
sharing, I think that would be wonderful because, in this way we can create the respect, the creation of uh, that respect is very, very important. But at the same time, respect to others, respect to other culture is very important. So I think in the cultural bonding, if we could
Yes, yes,
create something, I think that would be a wonderful idea. So that is one of the plus point and positive approach from the Indian perspective. We can
yes, yes.
is
And
and
by the way, Dr.
enemy
Swati,
enemy to some extent. Though they are not enemies, sometimes they are being converted in the politically motivated sometimes. So anyway,
by the way, Dr. Swati, and of
yes.
course to those viewers, Indian people are actually close to us Filipinos here. Not only, and of course, I've been in Singapore last 2015. There's this forum about security, about terrorism. Of course, there were Indians there, and of course they want to um, capitalize their efforts with other ASEAN member states to at least integrate their knowledge about their uh, specializations. Okay? So the word would be we have to establish a rule of engagement and at the same time cultural exchange that could stabilize our cultural connection at the same time our academic integrity and at some point the rollout of our strategy and policy. I guess that's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. And with this, though we have today very small participants, small number of participants joined today
Yes, yes.
webinars because
Appreciate
nowadays we all are locked down. So yeah, lockdown is to be ended a very little bit way, but most of the work are from home, so everybody is busy with some other webinar series. So
yes,
I
yes.
really, really thank you so much, and please, uh, we will continue this kind of work
Uh,
together. So
by the way,
yes,
lastly, I want I want to thank you, Dr. Swati, and this presentation. By the way, this discussion is of course for my for my family, my parents and siblings, and of course Tina, who is actually watching um,
Dr.
in
Swati.
other parts of
hello.
yes, my girlfriend is actually watching right now. So
Oh, wonderful.
If I'm be allowed to react
What's
with
mhm.
your name?
Dr.
What's your name?
Swati.
Not totally legal.
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Swati, I really like
Yeah.
what you said a while ago about cultural bonding. Actually, I was having discussions with Jumel earlier. This is the ample time for all of us, since in view of all the technology that we all have the means right now. This is the ample time for everyone to share not just our culture, but even our information and technology, because
Yes,
right
yes.
now information and technology is
I
power,
agree,
and we
agree.
can only do that we can speed up looking for a remedy for this COVID-19, and not just for COVID-19, but by mitigating and preventing any other communicable disease that may come in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, now what's your name? I'm
Can I?
sorry.
I'm Tina.
Tina, Tina. So, Tina,
Yes.
I welcome you in the web platform for dialogue. Please be with us in Facebook. We have a page, we have a group. So, it would be a life-changing scenario for whoever is associated with us. So, it would be a place for dialogue sharing without any kind of judgment, without any kind of negative comments. So, whatever you feel, whatever you like to share, just share with us.
Yes, this is
Uh,
actually this is a perfect environment. If only the world can do something what web platform does, we don't have any problem, I guess. This
Thank
is
you.
a
Thank you.
yeah,
great encouraging environment. I
Yes,
absolutely
yes,
love
Dr.
this.
Barman,
yeah. We are all citizens of the world, so we have to stay
global
together.
citizen, global citizen, sir. Yes.
Jumel,
Okay. Yes.
can I? I mean, if there is time enough,
Yeah,
just for a
already
short.
actually time is up. So
Okay,
maybe we will have a second round of
another time.
discussions with
Okay,
Jumel,
okay,
with Tina, of
okay,
course.
okay.
Okay, see
Okay.
you. Bye bye, all of
Okay,
you.
bye, bye, bye.
Bye, bye,
Good
Take
bye,
night,
bye.
care. Take
bye,
care.
bye,
Good night,
bye.
Jumel. Good night, Tina. Good night,
Yeah.
sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Swati.